how you're going to die. And you got to remember that his death is not going to be a pleasant experience. It's going to be a horrific, horrible death. He's also going to be sitting there with the guy who's going to betray him, who's going to turn him in. And he doesn't say anything bad about it. It's a horrible experience to know this, yet try to keep a straight face. Isn't that right, Polly? So we're going to take a look at this. We're going to take a look at Jesus' betrayal. This is the story, if you've read some of the Bible or know it, this is the thing about the 30 pieces of silver. So Judas agrees to betray Jesus. Then one of the 12, the one called Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priests and asked them, "What are you willing to give me if I deliver him over to you?" Him. God. How much will you pay me to deliver God to you? Stop and think about this. How much will you pay me? Wow. So they counted out 30 pieces of silver. This wasn't a lot. Okay? It's about the same value as a cow. 30 pieces of silver for the life of Jesus Christ. Crazy. From then on, Judas watched for an opportunity to hand him over. So first of all, we have Judas betraying him. Peter gets involved in this. We know Peter was one of the very first disciples that Jesus called. Him and his brother Andrew. One of the guys that's been with Jesus right from the beginning. So let's see what Peter does. Then Jesus told them, "This very night you will all fall away on account of me." He's talking to all 12 of them. All of you are going to abandon me. All 12 of you. Okay, that's quite a statement to talk about, the closest group of people that he's had with him. For it's written, "I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered." Another prophecy from the Old Testament. "But after I have risen, I will go ahead of you into Galilee." He's telling these guys, okay? And you're going to find out later on that they're all freaked out. Like, wow, he's here. He told them. But again, they still haven't got this idea. It's like if Jesus showed up here right now today, and he was talking to you, and he says, "Okay, look, I'm God." Some of you would believe it's Jesus. Some of you, I don't know. I don't know what it would take everybody to believe that he was Jesus. It's like I was talking to somebody the other day when I was doing a discipleship course with them. 9 o'clock at night. Put yourself in this position, okay? This is like the disciples. Knock, knock, knock on your door at 9 o'clock at night. You open the door. Jesus is standing there. And he says, "Marty, come on, let's go." Okay? You don't have time to go say, "Oh, I got to say goodbye to my husband. I got to pack a suitcase." Come now. What would you do? Now, as a Christian, there should be a standard answer. There should be, "Hasta la vista, Bob. I'm out of here. I'm going with Jesus." Would you do that? I haven't finished watching my television show. I got to phone my mom and let her know that I'm going with you. No. Come or not. And that's what he does. He's been trying to get this across to these guys. Peter replied, "This is probably the kind of thing we would want to say." Okay? Hopefully. "Truly I tell you." Okay, Peter replied, "Even if all the 11 fall away on account of you, I never will. I'll be with you to the end. I love you, I am with you, and that's it. I'm the most faithful of all these apostles. The rest of these 11 might, not me. All right, just like when I say, knock, knock, knock on the door, what are you going to do? So, Jesus turns around and says, truly I tell you, Jesus answered, this very night, before the rooster crows, you will disown me 3 times. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. Think of you as Peter. What are you talking about? And Peter declared, even if I have to die with you, I will never disown you. I'll die for you. There are some Christians around the world who do this. They die for their faith. They will not give up their faith. Would you? And again, as we've always talked about when we preach, there's no guilt, there's no condemnation. What we want you to think about is how strong is your faith? Oh, I'm just a token Christian until the time gets rough, then I'm going to run. Does that make you a Christian? I don't think so. And all the other disciples said the same. We got Peter standing up, I'll die for you. I'll never... Now the other 11, come on. They don't want to look like goofs. So they all go, me too, I'll die for you. I'm never going to give you up. All of them join in and say they're going to be with Jesus right to the very, very end. Now, keep that picture in mind. Peter disowns Jesus. Big surprise. Now Peter was sitting out in the courtyard and a servant girl came to him. Now some of this is not running end on end, okay? Because this is a long story. So when you sit down and read this yourself, you'll find that there's 2 separate accounts of this. So we've taken some of the stuff out, some of the lesser important stuff. So now Peter was sitting out in the courtyard and a servant girl came to him. Ah, you also were with Jesus of Galilee, she said. But he denied it before them all. I don't know what you're talking about, he said. All she said is that you were with Jesus. Not saying anything about, like, he's a disciple or anything like that. Just, you were hanging out with that disciple, with that Jesus guy, weren't you? Not me. This is the guy just a few minutes before, I'll die for you, I'll die for you. Okay. Then he went out to the gateway where another servant girl saw him and said to the people there, this fellow was with Jesus of Nazareth. He denied it again with an oath. He's kicking up the strength of what he says. I don't know the man. First of all, he just denies being with him. That's one thing. I don't even know him. Totally disowning him. After a little while, those standing there went up to Peter and said, surely you're one of them. Your accent gives you away. Then he began to call down curses and swore to them, I don't know the man. 3 denials, each one getting stronger and stronger and stronger. Okay? Now the importance of this is, again, where are you in your faith? Only you can answer that. How far would you go for Jesus? We get classic situations like the guy, you get the terrorist, and this kind of thing, puts a gun to Raj's head and says, I know you're a Christian. I'm going to blow you away. But I will not blow you away if you say, I don't believe in Jesus. Jesus is a fool. Just say that. Now, do you deny Jesus? far do you go? Are you willing to die for your faith? And just, again, no guilt, no condemnation. Just think about it. How far do you go? If I get my prayers answered the way I've asked them, okay, I'm into this Christian thing. But if I'm not getting the prayers that I want, I'm not going to. Is that what your Christian life is? I need to get something. If I don't get something, I'm not going to be into it. How far are you willing to go? Immediately, a rooster crowed. Then Peter remembered the word Jesus had spoken. Before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times. And he went outside and he wept bitterly. Again, this 3 thing keeps coming up. The Trinity. 3 strikes and you're out. 3 times, 3 separate occasions. Each one getting stronger and stronger in his denial of Jesus. Okay, keep the picture in mind. Judas hangs himself. Early in the morning, all the chief priests and the elders of the people made their plans how to have Jesus executed. So they bound him, led him away, and handed him over to Pilate the governor. When Judas, who had betrayed him, saw that Jesus was condemned, he was seized with remorse and returned the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and elders. I have sinned. It's got to be one of the greatest understatements of all time. I have sinned. I really messed up. Really? But the thing is that Jesus, keep this in mind too. When we start to go on these faith journeys, sometimes people get really wound up with different things. You'll hear people say, the Jews killed my Lord. The Romans killed my Lord. You got to remember, this was part of the plan. Jesus had to die. It does not matter who actually physically killed him. He had to die to take on our sins so we could live a sin-free life and be able to be in the presence of God. Don't ever forget that. I know there's some people who have watched The Passion of Christ hoping that the ending would be different. No, the ending always ends the same, okay? It never changes. And it has to end that way. For I have betrayed innocent blood. That's true. The only purely innocent, sinless person is going to die. What is that to us, they replied. That's your responsibility. So Judas threw the money into the temple and left. Then he went away and hanged himself. He's so depressed, so wound out of shape what he did, that he goes out and he actually hangs himself. That's the end of Judas. It's interesting to note too, all 12 disciples, except one, John. All 12 of them except John, so that's 11, die horrible deaths. Some are crucified upside down, some are cut in half. People like Judas are hung. All of them die a horrible death for Jesus, which is an important thing to think about. Because people will sit there and argue and say, Jesus is not real. Would 11 people die a horrible death for something that wasn't real? Are they that stupid, all 11 of them? You don't die this kind of thing unless it's true. The chief priest picked up the coins and said, "It is against the law to put this into the treasury since it is blood money. So they decided to use the money to buy the potter's field, a burial place for foreigners. That is why it has been called the field of blood to this day. Then what was spoken by Jeremiah, again we go back into the Old Testament, Jeremiah, one of the Old Testament prophets, told you about this when you're reading the Old Testament, was fulfilled. They took 30 pieces of silver, the price set on him by the people of Israel, and they used them to buy the potter's field as the Lord commanded me. Some people say that the prophecies in the Old Testament are really kind of hazy. Like, some of these fortune tellers, I don't know if you've ever gone to a fortune teller or, somebody, these kind of things, and they say to you, you are going to come into some money. And you're like, wow, that is so cool. And you're walking down the street and you find a nickel. So the fortune teller was right. The fortune teller didn't tell you how much. You're going to hear from a long-lost relative. They don't tell you when. Okay? There was like one of the classic ones was like, what was it, Oprah Winfrey? Oprah Winfrey loses 200 pounds. Wow, really? 200 pounds of British money. Listen to what I said. So she did. She lost 200 pounds. So this fortune teller was right. But these guys, these Old Testament prophets, are banging on. 30, why not 25? Pieces of silver. Why silver? Why not gold? That's pretty specific right there. But then the prophet goes on to say to buy the potter's field? In that one sentence, in that one prophecy, you're really staking a lot. And Jesus makes all these prophecies come true. Whoa. So, the questions here today, I want you to pay attention to these, because as soon as you say the word Judas, it's like saying Adolf Hitler or Donald Trump. Okay? So what happens is you automatically, this is like, this guy's evil. But keep in mind, he was one small part of a big plan. Okay? Even Jesus said to God the Father, "May it your will, not mine." There's a thing here that has to be done. So, in these questions, Judas is hated because he betrayed Jesus. Is that fair? Think about it. 2, what is your opinion of Peter's denial? Was he a coward? Should he have stayed with Jesus? Should he have walked the walk and not just talked the talk? And lastly, here's an interesting one. How far would you go to stand up for your faith? Now let's be honest, we're not going to be 100% like Jesus. But if this was a 100-rung ladder, if the faith ladder had 100 rungs on it, how high up that ladder are you willing to go before you start to freak out with the height? Well, I got 3 steps up, I ain't going no further. Okay? Now remember, Jesus is at 100. How far up that ladder would you get to go? Especially if it was last Friday and you got that wind. And you're up there whipping around, okay? Be honest with yourself. But don't take on any guilt. Guilt is the enemy's tool. He gets you feeling bad about yourself. Honesty is the way we grow. Okay? So, enjoy. Have a good time with these questions.